Hello and welcome. In this video we're going to cover chapter number 2, Configuring the Shell. In this chapter we're going to cover the command history, variables, the export command, the set and env commands. So let's get started. So I'm going to bring my command line, terminal window. I'm running Ubuntu, as you can see, so here we go. So first we're going to talk about the history. So in Unix in general, the systems, they save the commands in a history file. Some distribution may have the commands that are saved in the .bash history. So let's say ls-la, as you can see, and this is a hidden file. Notice that we have the bash rc and bash.bash history. Notice that's bash history right there. So if I type history command, notice that I have a couple of commands that I have already already typed. We could scroll back and down with the up arrow to look for the history commands that you typed, as you can see. And let's clear the history. So we could do history -c, and then if I type, for example, ls and then pwd, those are the two commands that I'm supposed to see in the history right there. Including the last command that is that, which is the history, and that's it. So you can clear the history with -c. Since we're going to talk about variables, so I'm running Ubuntu 20, so I'm going to show you how to, if you want to get rid of the history, you can actually export, use the export command that we're going to talk about, after a while. So what the export does, actually export a variable, to, the subshells or instances of the other instances of the shell. So we could export and then do hist size, to, for example, number 0. But before we do that, let's use a set command which I showed you, set, and then I'm going to pipe it to less right here. And use / to search for the hist size on my system. Notice that the hist size is set to 500. Hist size set to 500, so you can manipulate this history size by actually exporting a variable, and I'm going to show you right now how to do that. So you could export, for example, export then hist size right there. Then you could import it to, let's say, 1000. And let's do the same command as we did before. Then look for the hist size, and notice that it's set to 1000 right there. You can set it to 0 if you don't want to save any command. So I'm gonna quit, Control Z or quit to quit this window. So with all this being said, let's talk about variables. So environment variables, or variables in general, are critical because they store vital system information and modify the behavior of the bash shell, burn in the shell. So the shell will look for the environment variables, like in the history that I showed you, the hist size variable, and look for their values. So normally those environment variables are strings, that are followed. So there's $sign and the string and set to a value. Those are called environment variables, and they are vital to the system because the system use them, use their values instead of using the actual variable, to keep the system short, to keep things smooth, and so on. Let's give a couple of examples regarding the variables. So as I mentioned, the variables, environment variables, they start with a $sign. In general, if you want to display a variable, you need to include the $sign in front of it. So for example, we could use the echo command. Let's use echo, and then let's use, for example, the variable or environment variable user. Okay, so user is set to update. Let's check another environment variable. Let's say, which is very important. This one is the path. Okay, notice that the system uses the path instead. So let's say the system wants to search for a file in those paths. As you can see, separated by columns. It's not going to search. Okay, it's not going to pass. Okay, all those. Okay, locations here, as you can see. Instead, it passes a variable, and the variable stores all those values inside of it to keep things smooth and running smoothly. Okay, so yeah, I want to mention one important environment variable, which is the ps1. So actually, let's say echo, okay, and then $sign, sorry, here. $sign, and then let's say ps1. Okay, so notice that the ps1 environment variable take care of the prompt. The prompt is basically the update at Ubuntu, colon, and then tilde and $sign. This is the prompt right there. Okay, and we could manipulate this one here. So we could use, for example, let's say ps1 equals, and then I'm going to use something like greater than symbol here, right? I mean, like this right there. Okay, so notice that I change it to greater than symbol. We could change it back again. So ps1, ps1 here, capital ps1. And then let's change it to something like, I need to use the escape character in here, U for user, and I want to use host name, and I want to use colon, for example, and then I want to use, of course, backward slash as escape character, and then capital letter W, then let's use the pound symbol. Okay, notice that my prompt changed immediately, but here I forgot to notice that I didn't use the escape character before the H. That's why it didn't actually read it as a host name. So U for the host name, it's at symbol, and then H for hostname, and then W for current working directory, which is the tilde right there. Okay. Yeah, so variables are case sensitive, as you may know, like in every programming language. So we could use A equals 1, we could use low score, underscore 1 equals A. That's acceptable, but we cannot use 1 equals, for example, A. That's not acceptable. As you can see, I get an error. And environment variables or variables in general are case sensitive. So we could use, for example, $sign user, is not, let's use echo, is not like if you are using echo and then using a lowercase user here, Sorry, user. Yeah, so let's move forward. We talked about the PS and how to change your prompt in Linux. We talked about the path. So now let's create a couple of variables. So like in programming language, you could declare variables like var, let's say 1 equals 1, var 2 equals, for example, 2, and so on, yeah, you could also use strings. So let's say var 3 equals, let's say 3 here, 3. And let's say var 4 equals 4 here, var 4 equals, let's say 4, 4, Now, if I use the set command, as you can see, it will display all the variables for me, environment variables and local variables. So the capital ones and those environment variables are used by the system. Okay, local variables are used by Linux admins and users. As you can see, the local variables that I declared earlier. Notice that I declared a couple of variables right here. Those are local variables, local to the shell. Okay, local to the shell, and they appear only on this shell. So if I do, for example, echo, let's say var1, okay, notice that I need $sign in here. Just wanna demonstrate. So it returns its value, but if I do bash, I'm gonna run another instance of the bash shell, as you can see, and do the same command echo. Notice even the command is not in the history there, so I need to echo again and then $sign and then var1. Okay, so there's no variable called var1 because I'm in another instant. But what I can do right now, I can declare a variable here. Okay, I can declare a variable, for example, let's say var3 equals, let's say 3, and then var4, let's say var4 equals 4 here, 4, okay, and then let's export only one of them. Okay, so let's say var4, export var4, okay, and then let's use the bash. And let's use $sign, let's use echo, and then, let's say $sign, and then let's say var3 and var4. Okay. Notice it returns, after doing the bash, because I think I export them both, no? Export var, okay? Let's use another bash here. And then let's echo, let's use echo, and then let's say var4 and var3 here, okay, 3 and 4. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to declare another variable, okay, so I'm going to use var5, so var5 equals, let's say 5 here, 5, and var6, let's say var6 equals 6 right there. There we go. Let's use export command on var, okay, export var5. I'm not going to export var6, and let's run another instance bash right there. And then let's use echo, then we use $sign var5 and var6. Oh, I'm using var5 twice. So before I run the bash, so I need to do it again. I'm going to clear this gibberish right there. I'm going to use var5 is already there, so var6 equals, let's say, okay, equals 6 here. 6, and then we already exported var5, so let's use bash in here, other bash. Okay, so let's use echo var and var5 and var, okay, 6 right there. So var5 and var6, they have the same value of what? Echo var5 and var6. Let's change var5 equals, okay, and then let's 5 here, okay, and let's use var5 and var6. So now it's correct. Now let's use the export command, export, okay, and we export just var6 right there. Okay. Now let's use the bash to run another instance of the bash shell. And then now let's use echo, and then let's use var5 and var6 here. 5 and 6. Weird. Yeah, anyway, so you can export actually the variables to subshells using the export as we did with the environment variable, the history size. So to wrap up things that we talked about command history and how we can delete the history and how to actually scroll back and forth using the keyboard, up arrow and down arrow, how to create variables in Linux, what are the difference between local variables and environment variables, and why the environment variables are used, and how to create variables, the case sensitivity, and how to use the set to display variables and set to remove variables. So I'm going to show you the end set, for example, var, let's say var5, and then echo $, var5, and the var5 is gone. So I hope this has been informative for you guys, and I would like to thank you for viewing.